Boom. Yeah.
Welcome to the Confessions of a Scienceholic. Today we will continue discussion on climate change and its effect on Nepal and focus on water, which is less than 2% of available to drink, the same one we have polluted. First, let's look at some dry facts about Nepal and its water resources. Nepal is a landlocked country, so the only resources of water are through rivers, lakes, and underground reserve. Like the Middle East with oil, Nepal is rich in its source of water. Yet people are still lacking access to clean water due to poor management. Let's look at one obvious example. Boring for water in Kathmandu. There's lack of water being delivered from pipes. The best solution is suck up the water under your feet. However, let's understand what is really happening when we do this. So groundwater, where does it come from? Well, obviously from the ground, but how does it get to there? For us to understand this fully, let's look at the water cycle. Now let's imagine that the ocean is the Indian Ocean in the south, and the mountains and the land is Nepal. On the left, we have water evaporating from the ocean and will condensate into clouds, which get pushed by the wind towards the mountains on the north. Some of that water will precipitate while it's traveling north. So let's imagine the cloud has reached the top of Kathmandu, and well, don't get me started about acid rain, but that's a whole new can of worms that I won't open at this moment. So it's raining in Kathmandu. What happens? Well, the first thing I remember happening was the streets turning into rivers. Let me know if that has stopped happening since I haven't been there during the monsoon for a long time. So the water has few options. Get collected in lakes, get sucked up by plants, run off into rivers and such, and infiltrate underground. So through infiltration and percolation, Kathmandu underground water gets recharged. You know that kind of like battery, you have to recharge it once you use it, otherwise, well, you won't have any charge left. So you know that we are hindering that in Kathmandu right now, the recharging of groundwater. So let's take a wild guess what happens if we don't recharge the groundwater. Think about it while I just sip on some tea here. Well, if you haven't guessed it, it's infiltration and percolation of the water into the underground water reservoir. We're preventing our groundwater reservoir from recharging. Don't believe me? Let's check it out. Let's see what is actually happening. So watch as the water drains through the soil into the rocks below. Watch how the water level rises. That is your groundwater recharging. So what will happen as a result of drawing groundwater faster than the recharge rate? First, the water will run out. And the second possibility, I'm not saying it'll happen, but might happen, are sinkholes. I mean, shit, man, those things are big and just a big hole in the ground and probably swallow up your house, if not your car, or probably you if you're walking on top of it. I'm sure that is the scariest part. Running out of water or maybe falling into one of these. You decide which one's scarier to you. So what is the solution? There are many. However, the first step is water management and education about conservation, along with engineers and scientists in Nepal being vocal about this issue. They must learn to educate house owners if there are any dangers through drilling or construction. We can see houses that have fallen in the city during the earthquake. The government should maintain peace and regulate permit for construction. However, it is up to the engineer who is responsible for passing the blueprints to warn the dangers of construction and how the building or the resources used to build the buildings. Okay? It is up to the engineer to be vocal about any issues and danger to the public. After all, who else is going to know if a building will hold or not during an earthquake or flooding or other natural disasters? Engineers are the expert in this field, and they are the ones who have to be vocal about it. I know in Nepal it is hard and we all must eat to survive. So usually for many, the issue of holding your job comes first, feeding your family comes first. It isn't any easier here in the US. If you really want to know, it's actually easier to be homeless in the US than it is in Nepal. However, what do we sacrifice for this? A lot of us will probably put feeding our family first and having a job. However, hopefully my family won't expect me to compromise my ethics to feed them, and hopefully neither will your family. So, let's take a moment to talk about engineering and ethics. Today I have a guest on my show, Ruben Sharma. Okay, Ruben, welcome to Confessions of Scienceholic.
Thank you.
I apologize for any scraping sounds outside. New York just had a big blizzard and people are up and about trying to dig their car out. So let's continue with our show. So Ruben, you're a mechanical engineer. If you want to give a little background about that.
Yeah, my name is Ruben Sharma, and then I recently graduated from City College as a mechanical engineer and looking for jobs.
Right. Yeah, I mean, after graduation, looking for a job is a full-time job in itself.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, I guess, a little bit about your education in Nepal and your education here and how, it differed a bit, or what the difference or similarities were.
As far as education is concerned, in Nepal, you have to work hard for no reason.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's what I see.
Okay.
You work hard. Even I worked so hard in Nepal, then I worked hard here.
Mm-hmm.
But in Nepal, you don't have much resources,
Mm-hmm.
so you just work hard and then you look for opportunities.
Right.
But here, you have more opportunities. If you work hard, you will get into what you have hoped for.
Okay.
But in Nepal, it's totally different. You get educated, people know you are an educated guy, But at the end, if you don't have job, if you don't have what you have always wished for,
Mm-hmm.
you might be, some kind of devastated, or
Okay.
in some rare case, you can be mentally,
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess, the idea is that here, at least, if you have ideas, you work hard, you can see progress where, sometimes...
Yeah, plus here you can see the real life on the other side while you are studying.
Mm-hmm.
So you can relate yourself where you are going. But in Nepal, you just rely on the books.
Mm-hmm.
You just look at the books, It's like I told.
Right. So I guess there's a practical approach to education. Not only are you getting the theoretical part, but also at the same time you're applying it.
Yeah.
Right?
And when you have that method, you learn more
Mm-hmm.
because you're applying to the real world.
Okay.
But in Nepal, it's totally different.
It's very theoretical.
Yeah,
Right.
very theoretical. Even though you work hard in Nepal, then you work hard here.
Right. Okay, so I guess to continue from there, what has your experience been in, I guess, the side of engineering? I know a couple of people who are engineers in Nepal, and I've studied some engineering here as well. I have a science background. So to me, it's a very different scenario. How do you compare the engineers here versus the engineers in Nepal?
Engineers here, like I said, when you are in the learning process, you can experience the real world.
Mm-hmm.
So during the learning period, you are understanding how the situation is,
Mm-hmm.
So you are relating everything what you are learning.
Mm-hmm.
But in Nepal, you can be more educated, you know better,
Mm-hmm.
but you are not applying that.
Right.
So that's the main difference between being educated in Nepal as an engineer and being educated in US as an engineer.
And also, I guess you also have to take more certification exam here. Did you have- I know for civil you have to do EIT first. I don't know, same thing with mechanical, right?
Same thing.
So I mean, the one that made major difference is like certification here is I guess any engineers who are looking into studying in the U.S. Once you graduate with engineering degree from undergrad, you don't become an engineer in the U.S. You become an engineering training, which you get as a FE. Like, I've taken the exam as well as like 6-hour exam.
You took it?
I took it. It wasn't that bad. You learn your physics.
Mm-hmm.
Gives you a sweet headache, which you learn to enjoy. So yeah, I mean, I guess that's one thing is the certification. After that, like you said, the practical aspect of engineering.
That's the main
learn,
thing.
right?
When you differentiate between those two countries, that's the main thing.
Right. So yeah, you have to work under a professional engineer here
Yeah.
for about 4 or 5 years before you can take the actual PE exam, which is a professional engineering exam, to become an engineer in the U.S.
True.
So that's major difference, and you can't be called an engineer until you can pass your PE. Till then, you're an engineer in training. So I guess my second thing is that what do you think of engineers and their responsibility towards society and around the world, and what ethical issues should engineers in Nepal think about, especially in the US? Engineering ethics is a major part of the education, which I don't think is covered as widely in Nepal. I don't know if it's covered. I have looked at a couple of syllabuses and I usually don't see it. So what do you think?
That's a good question. As for me, I am doing a project which is about generating electricity from air. So what we are doing is we are using a piezoelectric material. What it is, we apply force on that component. It converts the mechanical energy from the vibration we apply to the electrical energy. So, for example, you can charge your iPhone. It's 5 volts.
Right.
So even a small component of that piezoelectric material can charge your iPhone through the vibrations produced. So in case of Nepal, if you can use those things in Nepal, like Nepal, we have shortage of many things, everything.
Right.
So no electricity. We are considered as the richest country for the water resources, but we don't even have water to drink. Like you said, we don't have clean water to drink. And forget about all the energy generation from the water. So even in Nepal, air is more efficient than water. Water, you have to invest a lot of money on that. For air, is you can just generate electricity from air. So what my project is about is very useful in Nepal. And I personally choose that project because it's so useful for me. And also people, if they see me as an engineer, they should see me what I have done. So in Nepal, I don't want people to see me as an engineer unless I do something good for them. So my plan is to use those things in Nepal, and so that people know that I'm doing something for them. So that's why I'm getting educated. It's not for me. I'm the source. I'm the I don't say I'm the hero or actor, but it's kind of actor. Like actor, like he should influence with his things, like many people, they get influenced with an actor. So similar is my case. Doing that, people will know me as an engineer.
So you're right. I think like those of us who study math, science, and engineering, it should be part of our life where we are enriching lives of other people.
Especially those who don't know about all these things.
Right. And it's about educating about what's happening and so on. So we will have another episode of with Ruben and his team's project. So keep an eye out for that. And if you guys have questions about engineering, feel free to put comments on YouTube. I'd like to hear about engineers in Nepal, what you guys are doing. But more than that, I want to know about what engineers in Nepal, what you guys are thinking regarding the responsibilities you have, about what you have to go through when, like, let's say a civil engineer, you deal with constructing of a building, bridges and so on. What ethical issues comes up, and how do you guys handle it, or is it even an issue that you have to think about? Because as a scientist and as an engineer, it might take us forever to come up with something new or forever to come up with something. However, when something comes out to the world, a new technology and a new idea, that has a humongous effect in the environment we live in. Think about the combustion engine made transportation easier, right?
Yep.
However, at the same time, it polluted our air. So think about, things like that, how it relates to our life and how it really, if it has a negative effect or a positive effect. A massive hydro dam project is good to generate electricity. At the same time, you'll end up flooding a lot of the areas that you have to build a reservoir around. So as Ruben said, maybe wind energy is a new viable source. So we'll look at more different types of energy and what can be used in Nepal in our next podcast episode on Nepal and its power sources. So thank you for joining us. Make sure you follow us on YouTube, subscribe to me on Twitter or to KPI Production, as well as give me feedback, a positive and constructive feedback. If you just want to talk nonsense, I will not read it. I will not care about what you have to say, but I would like to hear what you guys as an engineer, scientist, or even as a Nepali person who works in a different field are thinking about how science and engineering is affecting your lives or lives of others in the community in Nepal. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.